Welcome, dear listener. Take a deep breath and let the world grow quiet around you. Tonight, we journey to a peaceful village hidden among whispering trees, where love and jealousy walk side by side, and kindness shines like morning light. So, close your eyes, listen softly, and let the story begin. Once upon a time, in a quiet little village, surrounded by whispering forests and golden meadows, there lived two sisters, Grace and Liana, and their younger brother Evan. Their home was small but full of sunlight. Standing at the edge of the woods where wildflowers grew freely and birds sang every morning, Grace was the elder sister. She was gentle and kind. Her smile carried warmth and her voice calmed every troubled heart. Each morning before the first rays of light touched the sky, she helped her father at his little fruit stall by the roadside. She would wash the apples, arrange the peaches, and greet every villager with a cheerful good morning. People often said that Grace brought luck to anyone she smiled at. Liana, her younger sister, was different. She was very beautiful, but she was also proud. She loved to sit by the river and watch her reflection in the water. She would brush her long, shiny hair and whisper to herself that she was far more beautiful than her sister. While Grace's beauty was soft like candlelight, Liana's was bright like fire. But beauty without kindness fades quickly, just like a flower without fragrance. Though they lived under the same roof, their hearts were far apart. Grace spent her days working, helping, and caring for others, while Liana spent her time admiring herself and thinking only of how to gain more praise. Whenever their father spoke kindly to Grace or thanked her for her hard work, a shadow of jealousy crossed Liana's heart. That jealousy grew slowly like a dark seed taking root, until one day it filled her completely. Dear listener, one morning Liana came to Grace with a smile and said, "Sister, let us go to the forest today. I have heard there are sweet berries there that Father will love." Grace believed her at once because her heart was pure. "What a lovely idea," she said. "Let us go together and surprise Father." And so the two sisters walked into the forest hand in hand. The air was cool and filled with the songs of birds. Shafts of sunlight danced between the trees. But as they went deeper, the forest grew darker, the trees grew taller, the paths narrower, and soon even the birds stopped singing. Grace looked around nervously and whispered, "Liana, this place feels strange. Maybe we should go back." But Liana smiled and said, "Just a little farther." Soon they came to a wild and lonely place where the air was still and the shadows deep. Suddenly, two wolves appeared from behind the rocks, their eyes glowing bright and hungry. Grace screamed and dropped her basket. She turned to her sister for help, but Liana froze in fear. Instead of helping, she hid behind a tree and watched as the wolves drew closer. Grace stumbled and cried for help. Just when her voice grew weak, a sudden flash of light filled the forest. An old woman appeared holding a wooden staff. She lifted it high and shouted strange words that echoed through the trees. The wolves howled and ran away. The forest grew quiet again. The old woman hurried to Grace's side. The poor girl was trembling, her arms scratched and her dress torn. The woman spoke softly and said, "You are safe now, my dear child. Come with me." She carried Grace to her small cottage deep in the woods. Inside the little home, the fire glowed warmly, and the air smelled of herbs and honey. The woman laid Grace on a soft bed and gave her warm soup to drink. For many days she cared for her, gently cleaning her wounds and giving her healing herbs. Slowly, Grace began to recover. Even in her weakness, she never spoke badly of Liana. She only said, "I hope my sister is safe." The old woman looked at her kindly and thought how rare such a heart was in this world, so pure and forgiving even in pain. When Grace was strong enough to walk again, the old woman came to her and said, "It is time for you to go home, my child." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "I will never forget your kindness," she said softly. Together they walked back through the forest. When Grace's father saw her standing at the gate, pale but alive, he ran to her and held her tightly. "My dear Grace, I thought I had lost you," he cried. That night, as they sat by the fire, Grace told him everything. She spoke gently without anger of how Liana had asked her to go to the forest, of how the wolves came, and how the old woman had saved her. Dear listener, her father listened in silence. His heart broke with every word. He could not believe that jealousy had led one daughter to harm another. He wanted to talk to Liana, but before he could do so, his health began to fail. Grief weighed on his heart like a heavy stone, and after some time he passed away quietly, leaving his daughters alone. The house that was once full of laughter became silent. Grace wept beside him for many nights. Liana too felt the pain of guilt, but she did not have the courage to face her sister. She stayed away, hiding from her own shame. In the evenings when the wind moved through the trees, it seemed to whisper softly, kindness always returns, even after pain. One night, as Grace sat alone by the fire, there came a gentle knock on the door. When she opened it, she saw the same old woman, but this time the woman was shining with a soft golden light. "Child," she said kindly, "I am not just an old woman. I am a fairy. I came to test your heart, and you have shown that it is full of goodness. Even in suffering, you remained gentle and true." Dear listener, Grace bowed her head humbly. "I only did what my heart knew was right," she said. The fairy smiled and raised her wand. A soft light filled the room. In an instant, the small broken cottage turned into a beautiful home surrounded by a garden of golden flowers. The air smelled of spring, and the night sky sparkled above. "Whenever you need something, remember me, and I shall come to your aid," the fairy said. Grace knelt down in gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "But all I wish for is peace, and the chance to do good for others." From that day, her home became a place of light. The poor came to her for food. Travelers found rest in her garden. Birds sang on her windowsill. And every flower seemed to whisper the same truth over and over again, that kindness is the strongest magic. One bright morning, Grace was watering the flowers in her golden garden. The sunlight danced on the petals, and the air was full of soft fragrance. From the road nearby came the sound of horses and voices. A royal carriage was passing through the village. It belonged to Prince Adrian, who was returning from a hunting journey. As the carriage rolled past Grace's home, the prince saw her standing among the flowers. She looked calm and kind, her face glowing gently in the sunlight. The prince stopped his carriage and stepped down. He looked at her for a long moment and then said softly, "Who are you, fair lady, who lives in such beauty yet such simplicity?" Grace smiled and answered, "I am only a village girl, my lord. All that I have is a gift of kindness." Dear listener, the prince was touched by her gentle voice. He began to visit her again and again. Each time he saw her helping others, feeding the poor, and comforting the lonely. He watched how she spoke to everyone with love, and how her laughter made even the saddest hearts feel warm. Slowly, the prince fell deeply in love with her. It was not her beauty that won him, but her goodness. One day he said, "Grace, will you come with me to the palace and share your kindness with my people?" She looked at him with humble eyes and said, "My heart will go wherever it can bring peace and comfort." Soon after they were married, the bells of the kingdom rang joyfully. Grace became the princess, and everyone in the land loved her. Wherever she went, people smiled. Her kindness turned the palace into a place of light. The servants respected her. The poor found help, and the old found care. Grace's heart never changed. She still lived simply and never forgot the lessons she had learned in her father's small house. While Grace lived in joy, her sister Liana was lost in sorrow. After their father's death and Grace's disappearance, the villagers began to speak about what had happened in the forest. They whispered of Liana's jealousy and her cruel trick. Slowly, everyone turned away from her. She became alone. Day after day, she sat beside the river where she once admired her reflection, but now she saw only tears on her face. Her pride had faded. Her beauty no longer mattered. The days grew long and quiet, and the nights were heavy with regret. Often, she whispered to herself, "If only I had loved my sister instead of envying her. If only I had known that kindness was the real beauty." Dear listener, one evening, as she sat crying by the river, a gentle light appeared before her. The same fairy who had saved Grace now stood by the water, her eyes filled with both sorrow and love. "Liana," she said softly, "your suffering is of your own making. But remember, the door to goodness is never closed. You can still seek forgiveness, not from me, but from your sister." Liana bowed her head. Tears fell onto her hands. "I do not deserve her forgiveness," she whispered, "but I will try." The next morning she began her journey to the royal palace. Her clothes were worn, and her steps were weak, but her heart was sincere. When she reached the palace gates, the guards at first did not recognize her. But when Grace heard that a woman was asking to see her, she came running. The two sisters stood face to face. Liana looked thin and pale. Her eyes were full of pain. Before she could speak, Grace opened her arms and embraced her. Liana fell to her knees crying, "I do not deserve your love. I was cruel and jealous. Please forgive me." Grace lifted her up gently. "My dear sister," she said, "forgiveness heals the heart, yours and mine. Let us begin again." At that moment the air shimmered with golden light. The fairy appeared once more, smiling with joy. She said, "Grace, you have shown that true nobility lies in mercy. And you, Liana, have learned that jealousy destroys only the one who holds it. Now both your hearts are free." The fairy raised her wand and a soft glow filled the room. The sisters held each other tightly as the light wrapped around them like a warm embrace. When the glow faded, the fairy was gone, leaving behind a gentle scent of flowers and peace. From that day on, Liana stayed with Grace at the palace. She helped the poor and cared for the gardens. Slowly, her heart healed. The two sisters worked together, spreading kindness wherever they went. The people of the kingdom spoke of them with love. They said these sisters are living proof that forgiveness can turn darkness into light. Dear listener, years passed. The kingdom grew peaceful and happy. Grace and Liana grew older side by side, their bond stronger than ever. Every spring they would walk through the gardens hand in hand, remembering their journey from pain to peace. And every child in the land knew their story. Mothers would whisper it at bedtime, saying, "Be like Grace, kind and forgiving, for kindness is the light that never fades." The story of Grace and Liana became a tale of hope passed down through generations. It reminded everyone that beauty is not in the face but in the heart, that envy is a shadow which disappears only when love shines through. And so the tale ends where it began, in a world touched by kindness. Grace and Liana found peace because they chose forgiveness over pride and love over anger. True beauty lives in a kind heart. Envy darkens the soul, but kindness brings light. Forgiveness is the greatest power of all. It heals wounds that pride can never touch. Soft music fades as the voice grows gentle. Thank you, dear listener, for joining this calm story tonight. May your heart stay gentle and your days filled with peace. Remember, kindness always returns. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe so we can meet again for another calm tale under the quiet stars. Goodbye, dear listener.